It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and welcome to 1996. And what better way to start off a new year than looking back on the year's past movies that we didn't get a chance to talk about. As I mentioned before, we have 10 movies to look at that we did not get to cover in any of the other 1995 episodes. We're going to be very quick on these, because most of these I really have not seen, so I can't really delve into them too much, though. But there are some movies in there of interest that we didn't cover in the other 1995 episodes. So let's go ahead and get started with that, because we got a long way to go here. So let's start off with the first movie that we have here, the interactive movie, Mr. Payback. Yeah, needless to say, there was not a whole lot of theaters equipped with that specific stuff that they needed to make this movie be seen in a ton of theaters. I mean, the gimmick there is basically, you kind of see it there, it's designed as an interactive movie. They have basically 2 hours worth of footage, and approximately 20 minutes of it is what's shown in every single viewing of it. Basically, you have the audience vote for various directions the story will take, using a joystick attached to the armrests of the seats, and it's basically Choose Your Own Adventure, the movie, except the Choose Your Own Adventure books that these movies are kind of based off of are much more enjoyable, and they're much more intriguing, or at least much funnier in the way that is besides how this movie plays it out. I mean, you basically have a thing here where it's an interesting concept, but not the way it's presented here. I mean, you're basically just watching this vigilante android. That's what they describe him in the description here, who is basically taking action by humiliating and attacking people who have committed crimes or have done wrong in the past. You have these different storylines. You have 3 different storylines you can go. You can choose to setting a selfish car jerk by slowly disassembling his car, setting a bike thief's clothes on fire, eating a gang member's knife, just some of the various things you can do here, and it culminates in this game show sequence hosted by this android, where you basically just watch somebody's stuff somebody gets destroyed, somebody's stuff gets destroyed, somebody gets humiliated, and like I said, it'd be more interesting if the thing was actually more interesting or funny to watch, but there's nothing really about this movie that's worth it at all. Like, none of these things that they're doing is anything unique or interesting or even exciting on any level, and it's just not really that great. Like, it's not something that really deserves all this talent here and all this effort to go into this. If you're not going to figure out a good story to tell with this setup, it's not worth doing at all. Like, you know what it kind of reminds me of? There was a game on this, I think it was the 3DO, called Plumbers Don't Wear Ties. AVGN covered it, and it was pretty much kind of that same concept too. It's this game that is meant for mostly general audiences. Pretty much anyone is, but okay, maybe not general audiences, but mostly teen audiences. I think it was like 16. I think you had to be like 16 or so to play it, but it had that same kind of feel to it. It felt like a game that was trying way too hard to be more adult, and just did it in like the unfunniest ways possible. Like, what they were trying to throw at the wall, that's how they were going to get you to laugh. And this movie feels very much like that. And I think it came out around the same time this did. The jokes in here are nothing but bathroom humor. The stuff they do here to try to get your attention, there's lame attempts at like attempts at sexy, like getting these sexy women to dress up in lingerie and all that type of stuff. Dominatrixes come to play here. Nobody in this movie is written well at all. It's a shame to have people like Christopher Lloyd, Leslie Easterbrook from the Police Academy movies, Bruce McGill. Like, there's prominent names in this movie, but they needed something a whole lot better than this. Like, none of these moments in this movie you feel like you're getting any value out of. Everything's just kind of like, it's just like sticking stuff on the wall and seeing if it works, and it doesn't work on most levels. And the sad part is, this is written by the same guy that co-wrote Back to the Future. I mean, the Back to the Future trilogy is a great series of films, and the scripting reason is the reasoning why. It's amazing how low this guy went for a little bit by making this movie. He probably had an ambitious idea with this, but he just had to rush this out there, and I really don't think this would have sold on a wide front anyway, because you're basically sitting in a movie theater for 20 minutes, and then you're done. Like, they tried to sell this as like a thing where you're sitting there to watch a whole movie, but you're only in there for like 20 to 30 minutes, so what's the point? Like, what's the end result of this whole thing? But it's just like, it really doesn't work on any level. It's an idea that could be very interesting, but just the execution and just the way it's presented just doesn't work at all. It's a huge misfire on so many levels. Mr. Payback. So, let's move on to the next movie I have on this list here, Little Odetta. Little Odessa. What do I call it? Little Odetta. Little Odetta. Oh boy. Most notable thing about this movie is the directorial debut of James Gray, who was has been best known for directing films like The Yards, We Own the Night, Two Lovers, The Lost City of Z, Ad Astra with Brad Pitt. He's got a new movie coming out soon that just came out, I should say, Armageddon Time, which I have not seen. And I have not seen this movie, though, but you got Tim Roth in the first of two movies we're going to be looking at on this particular show. Edward Furlong, Moira Kelly, Maximilian Schell, Vanessa Redgrave. The title is a reference to Brighton Beach, where this movie takes place, in a community in Brooklyn named Little Odessa. But I haven't heard too much about this one. It's not got bad reviews for it. It's kind of like got mixed reviews on it. So I really don't know if this movie actually is worth it or not. But it definitely could be something interesting. Usually Tim Roth doesn't usually pick a lot of bad movies, honestly. So I don't believe that this would be a terrible, terrible movie. A great film? Probably not, but that's pretty much all I know about that one. So that's Little Odessa. Next movie, Sam Elliott starring in Country Life. You also have Greta Scacchi from Lethal Weapon, John Hargraves, Google Withers. This is a film that's adapted from the play of Uncle Vanya by Anton Chekhov, which is actually the second one within the last year that we've seen based on that story with Vanya on 42nd Street. Period piece movie. Don't really know too much about it, and it doesn't look too bad either. It's kind of like the same thing with Little Odessa. Like, I haven't heard too many bad things about it. I haven't heard too many great things about it either, but I don't think it's going to be that terrible. It doesn't look that terrible, honestly. So, other than that, I don't know. I haven't seen it, so I can't really say too much about it. So, that's Country Life. Let's move on to the next movie, and that is Double Happiness. So you see Sandra Oh from Grey's Anatomy, Sideways, Arliss. This is actually the first movie she ever starred in the leading role, and she plays an actress struggling to assert her independence from the expectations of her Chinese-Canadian family, with Callum Keith Rainey playing her love interest in this movie. And I couldn't find any trailers for this, but I mean, it looks like it could be a fun little romantic comedy, kind of a reminiscence of sort of like Before Sunrise in a way. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. I don't think it's on that same level, but it could actually be something pretty interesting. Sandra Oh usually picks a lot of good roles in her career, and I don't deny that this probably is a good movie, and I see it's got some pretty good reviews on it, so maybe it is actually something that could be a lighthearted romantic comedy in a way, but could be a good romantic comedy with a little bit of dramatic elements to it. So, again, I haven't seen it, so I can't really say too much about it. So that's Double Happiness. On to the next one I have here, The Run of the Country. One of Peter Yates' two movies from 1995. We already covered Roommates. The story here, you follow a political and generational conflict in a teen romance and coming-of-age story in Ireland. You have Albert Finney as a policeman who he lives just south of the border between North Ireland and the Republic, and he hopes for just one more murder to solve and make himself famous. And his real concern, however, is that his relationship with his 18-year-old son, Danny, has been strained since the recent death of his wife from a heart attack during a domestic quarrel. So Danny blames his father for his mother's death and resents his father's bullying ways. So he moves in with his best friend. Danny then falls in love with this beautiful red hair woman, and the conflict with his headstrong father comes to a boil at that point. That's pretty much really all I know about this movie. I just read you the plot right there. I really did not know this movie even existed before I looked it up, but Albert Finney usually is very good. You got David Kelly, who was Grandpa Joe in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Doesn't look too bad either. It kind of reminds me a little bit of a Banshees of Inisherin type of feel to it, and it has very much the same. Looks like it has very much the same qualities of the same style of Roommates, I should say. But I'm just going off of this one trailer here. It looks like it could be a decent film. Really, pretty much any of these movies that I have on here look like could be decent films that I haven't seen, but yeah, another quick one there. So that's The Run of the Country. Let's move on to the next movie, The Horseman on the Roof. Directed by the same man that did the 1990 version of Cyrano de Bergerac, although they call it Cyrano, just that for some reason. You got Juliette Binoche, Olivia Martinez, who would later be seen in SWAT. You have, what else is in here? Gerard Depardieu is in here in an uncredited role. And that's, again, haven't seen this movie, but it's one of those movies that was on the list of notable films in '95, so might as well cover it. So, I mean, doesn't look bad either. Like, again, most of these movies do not look that bad, honestly. So, that's The Horseman on the Roof. So let's go through another one real quickly. Reckless. I didn't even know this movie even existed. There's another one that I never knew existed until I looked it up. But judging by that trailer, that really did not sell this movie too well. It looked like a movie that... It looks like one of those direct-to-video movies. Like, I think Mia Farrow actually did a couple of these back then. Like, she was in Rent-A-Kid, which was a direct-to-video film that I remember. Or even something on the lines of Serial Mom, which... Not Serial Mom, Trading Mom. Serial Mom's a completely different movie that I'm thinking of. No, Trading Mom, which I think... Which had Sissy Spacek in it, but it kind of feels like a movie that doesn't look like a movie that was meant for theaters. It looks like something that was meant for straight-to-television or a video release, but I will say, though, it looks really bizarre, but my interest is kind of piqued on it. The story basically is that on Christmas Eve, a regrettable husband admits to his high-spirited wife that he has hired a contract killer to take her out, and she flees. The couple opens a shelter for her, but everybody has dark secrets in this movie. It looks like it's trying to sell stuff as kind of a screwball comedy in a way, and maybe that's part of the reason why I'm very curious about it, because as much as I don't think this movie looked like it was meant for theaters, it does look really interesting. Like, it looks visually, stylistically pleasing. Like, it looks very interesting in terms of the style, the visuals, and I mean, you got a good cast to it. Mia Farrow, Scott Glenn, Mary Louise Parker, Tony Goldwyn, Stephen Dorff, William Fichtner, Mary Louise Parker, Eileen Brennan. Some notable names in here. Just the style. It looks like it takes place inside of a snow globe, honestly. Ooh, excuse me. But yeah, it's definitely a weird movie. The trailer, I think, makes it look even worse than it probably is, but on a visual level, it actually looks pretty impressive, and my interest is definitely piqued on it. So who knows? Maybe this holiday season I'll definitely check it out. But I will say that the trailer didn't look pleasing all that much, but just the style of it alone looks very interesting. And it looks like it could be something that might actually be kind of decent. I don't know for sure, but my interest is definitely piqued on it. So Reckless. So let's move on to the next movie that we have here, and that is Four Rooms. I feel like this is a movie that Miramax was trying to sell as the next Pulp Fiction. I mean, it has one of the producers on from Pulp Fiction, and also has Quentin Tarantino as both a co-writer and director on it. You basically have here kind of a black comedy anthology with these different filmmakers. You have Allison Anders, Alexander Rockwell, Tarantino, and Robert Rodriguez. All this is based loosely on the short stories written by Roald Dahl, of course, of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and Matilda fame. And really good cast to it. I mean, you saw it right there. Tim Roth, Antonio Banderas, Jennifer Beals, Valeria Golino, Madonna, Ione Skye, Lily Taylor, Marissa Tomei. Just a really solid cast overall here. But I think from watching this movie, honestly, I did watch it a long time ago. I don't remember too much about it, honestly, but I do remember the first two shorts being not quite as good as the other two shorts And honestly, the first one I thought kind of had an interesting concept to it. Like you have these coven of witches that are inside of this hotel, and you think that would lead to something pretty funny or amusing, but it doesn't really do that. Everybody in here does the best they can. Like, I like the characters themselves. I just wish there was a lot more material with them. I mean, the second one was also pretty good, too. I mean, you got Jennifer Beals in there. And like I said before, usually when you put her in anything, she will usually give 110%, even if what it ends up being is not really all that good. The first half isn't bad, but the second half, the ones with Robert Rodriguez and the one with Quentin Tarantino, I think are the two best ones. And really, it's because this was peak Robert Rodriguez and peak Quentin Tarantino. This is where they were working their best stuff, and it has the most memorable moments to these two segments. And those are the two things that really kept this movie from being a complete waste. But it's hard not to look at this and not think of Blame It on the Bellboy, which is kind of a similar movie, except that one was more of a singular storyline with these different little subplots, and not really an anthology film, but definitely a lot better. It starts off really slow. The first two segments are not really all that strong, but once you get to Robert Rodriguez and Quentin Tarantino's part, that's where the film really does become more than worth the watch. I mean, I think you can watch the whole movie overall and really enjoy it for what it is. But it'll mostly come in the second half of the film. First half isn't bad, but it definitely could have been a whole lot better. The other two segments are really the best parts of this movie. It's an overall decent film, but definitely could have been a whole lot better, honestly, if the first two stories had worked out better. But I mean, like I said, it wasn't a complete disaster, but it was a film that got better as it went along. I think you can get through the first half okay, but you'll really enjoy what happens in the second half of it. So, 4 rooms, basically 2 of the 4 rooms were actually the best part of the movie. So, next up, we have Ian McKellen starring in Richard III. Of course, this is based off of William Shakespeare's play of the same name. They adapt the story and characters to a setting based in the 1930s Britain, and Richard is depicted as a fascist plotting to usurp the throne. Of course, Ian McKellen plays the title character. You also have a cast that includes a lot of notable names here. Annette Bening as Queen Elizabeth, Jim Broadbent, Robert Downey Jr., Kristen Scott Thomas, Nigel Hawthorne, Maggie Smith, John Wood, Tim McInerney. Just a lot of notable names in here, and on a visual level, it looks pretty impressive. But again, it's one I haven't seen before. But again, just those names alone, and it does look like a pretty good movie. It's got a lot of good reviews. It was nominated for several Oscars, so it was probably a pretty good movie. So one day I'll definitely check it out. But I can't really say too much more about it right now because I haven't seen it. So let's move on to the last movie that we have here, which coincidentally also stars Robert Downey Jr. in it, and it's another period piece. It's Restoration. Actually has a couple of notable names here that we've already talked about in this episode. Robert Downey Jr., Sam Neill. You also have Meg Ryan, David Thewlis, Polly Walker, Ian McKellen once again, Hugh Grant. And you have Downey Jr. playing a 17th century medical student who's exploited by King Charles II. And directed by the same guy that did Soap Dish and worked with Robert Downey Jr. in that movie. And I love that movie, Soap Dish. I have not seen this movie, honestly, and really just by the fact that it has the same director as Soap Dish, and, you know, Robert Downey Jr. usually doesn't pick a really bad movie, like he rarely picks bad movies, except, of course, for something like Doolittle or Due Date, but he usually does a pretty good job in these type of movies, so this probably is another very good film, and again, a great cast, Sam Neill, Meg Ryan, Ian McKellen, Hugh Grant. You can't go wrong on that front. It's won a couple of Oscars for art direction and costume design, so it definitely has a lot there that could be really appreciative, and it got a lot of good reviews for it, so yeah, I haven't seen it, but I really do want to see it. It has a lot of things that make me very curious about it, so yeah, Restoration. And I know this episode was pretty much just me saying, this movie looks interesting, this movie looks good, this movie looks terrible, all that type of stuff, yada, yada, yada. What do you want me to do? There was no other new movies that came out on this particular weekend. But next week, however, we will definitely delve into some new releases. On the next episode, of course, we have 6 movies. Some are notably good movies, some of them notably some decent films, others not so much. We have the Wayans Brothers, Don't Be a Menace to South Central While Drinking Your Juice in the Hood. We also have Sally Field and Kiefer Sutherland in the thriller Eye for an Eye. The infamous Biodome with Pauly Shore and Stephen Baldwin. I think Sandra Bullock and Dennis Leary in Tooth by Sea. Dunstan Checks In, and also the infamous Lawnmower Man 2, Beyond Cyberspace. So, some decent titles there, some movies that obviously deserve to be in the January dumping ground, but we will definitely delve into all of those on the next episode, which will be, of course, tomorrow. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode, and I will see you guys tomorrow for another episode. So thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. And until then, as always, take care.